Chemical waste.
There is God, don't let her burn it out. Or for her not to be permanently paralyzed if she lives from that. It's far too easy to kill people. There's no coming back from this. Damn, poor woman. I'm not freaking out yet, so that's good. It's gonna set in eventually.
911, what is your emergency?
Hi, I just saw somebody get stabbed in the armory.
Do you remember where you went in the food court?
Yes, I went to the Skillet, which is a little restaurant off the corner, and I had my book with me, and I just was reading my novel and having a beer.
Was there anything that kind of caught your attention as you were sitting there?
I heard a scream. It's very hard to describe what I heard. I just heard a sound that something was really terribly wrong. It was the type of scream I haven't really heard before. I turned around and looked. I saw a man stabbing a woman in the base of her neck.
Seattle Center, food court, stabbing.
I saw where he had stabbed her, and I knew what big blood vessels run through there.
Food court armory near the space needle, and I just stabbed somebody, and they're identifying me to her.
David 2, clear for fire. Subject does not look alert.
Her eyes were like half open, and people were again putting pressure on her wounds. There was blood. There was blood on the towels. There was blood on her chin.
Hey, you
There was
guys,
blood on the
are
floor.
you okay? I'm going to take our son out of here.
Suspect is the dad.
Suspect is dead. This is DV.
Yeah, and then
Okay.
that's his son right there.
This is his property.
This is dad.
Okay, so they were eating
According
here.
to the child.
Okay.
We were doing a hiring event for Seattle, for the Mod Pizzas in Seattle proper. So I was there to help conduct interviews for squad members. As I was interviewing this person who was looking for a job at Mod, we were talking, and we were sitting down at a table directly right in front of me, about 1 to 2 tables down. There was a scuffle in which at that point, because chairs at a high top had shifted and moved, and there was just a lot of sudden movement, is when it caught my eye when I looked up and saw what I thought was this gentleman, what I thought he was just punching her in the throat. Didn't realize that there was an actual knife in his hand. I remember standing there with my hand over my neck, reaching for my phone.
911, what's your emergency?
We're at the Seattle Center location, and there was a stabbing.
At one point, there was a chair thrown at him, in which then his body did orient in the other way, in which I believe Roxy came up behind him to then physically, she grabbed him by the shoulder to physically remove him, and which he then turned around and nicked her on her chin.
Roxanne.
What were you doing at Mod Pizza?
Mod Pizza, just a regular squad member. Standing at the soda machine, and Carmen yells to me, Roxy, he's punching her. And I look over and I see what looked to be like maybe somebody was punching somebody else. I mean, the motions were there. I yelled, hey, and I ran up and I guess I like a bear hug, grabbed him, pulled him back away from whatever he was doing. I remember after I grabbed him and pulling back, I seen coming up was blood and a knife. Freaked out and was like, I'm gonna die. And I turned, and I think as I turned, that's when I got cut by the knife.
Where's the other victim at?
She's sitting down right there.
I guess there's a bunch of Starbucks employees bunkered down. I'm gonna go get them out.
Okay.
Hey, miss. Make sure you don't go, Roxy, make sure you don't go until one of us interviews you, okay?
Yes, sir. How you doing, Rox?
Man, I'm freaking out. I didn't know what else to do but to grab a knife. I didn't know he had a knife.
Well, good job.
I just seen him doing this, and my instinct.
Right.
Grabbed him, and he turned around and crossed.
Carmen, I work at Mod Pizza. I'm a shift manager, captain.
Now, did you take an order from a young woman and a young child at approximately around the hours of 4:10, 4:12?
Yes, I did.
Can you just describe that woman for us, what she looked like?
From what I remember, is she was probably early 30s. I want to say that she possibly was Native American, or she had brownish skin, maybe Mexican, I don't know. She looked like she was Native American. I don't know, I thought she was pretty. Seemed nice, she was a mom, you know what I mean? She walked in with the boy, and then I assumed it was his dad. She came up to the counter to order food, and the boy and the dad or guy went and sat at a table off to the side. As the boy went and sat down with the man, when she came walking up, she was kind of like joking around. She's like, "Do you sell sanity?" And I was like, "You're coming to the wrong place. You're looking for sanity," because our store gets kind of crazy. And so we just kind of like laughed. It was really like light. And then she just ordered a mini Maddie, which is just a mini child-sized mod pizza. As I was ringing her up, the boy hopped down off the bench, off the stool, and he came down and he grabbed a no-name cake. It's like a fancy ding-dong that we have, and he wanted that, and he gave it to her like he was going to get it, and she told him no. And when she told him no, he lost his mind. He was mad. He needed to eat his pizza, and afterwards he could have one.
Now, while this interaction was happening, you described a man. What was that man doing?
He walked up once she had told him no. The man had walked up and he said, "Just buy him the cake." She just stayed the same. She said no. They all went and sat back at the table together.
Now, the two other individuals, the woman and the man, what did you see them doing as the child was eating the pizza?
Talking. There's a gate that pulls out alongside there. So that's a corner. She was standing with her back to basically the sneaker, and then he was standing in front of her. Out of the corner of my eye to the right, I looked over, and the boy was still sitting there eating his pizza, and I seen the guy doing this, like punching. And I thought, my first reaction was like, I yelled out to Roxy. I go, "Roxy, get him. He's punching her in the face." You know what I mean? Because I thought that he was punching her. And so I yelled for Roxy to go help her. Roxy jumped on his back, and as he turned around, that's when I seen the knife and blood, and I picked up the phone to call 911.
That's our kid.
Emergency.
Hey, somebody just got stabbed. We're at the armory. We're at the armory at the town center.
Okay, what's going on there?
Somebody just stabbed this lady. We're at the armory at the town center.
Somebody just stabbed the lady?
Yeah, somebody just stabbed this lady. Her son's right here.
Okay, got it. Where's the guy with the knife?
He went running down past Surreal. He's running out the exit. He's trying to run out of the exit. He's running down by the Space Needle. Actually, he's walking. He's going into Surreal. He's got the knife in his hand. Okay.
He calmly walked off.
You can tell a lot about people about certain things that stress them. If you look at it objectively, I mean, here I am stabbing this woman, you know. It's sad that almost no one was willing to try to stop me. I had a knife, yeah, but it's just a knife. Multiple people could have easily tackled me. So there's a lot of cowardice going on. I know there's a lot of negative stereotypes about Seattle, but...
Brian, last name's Elk-Snitus. I work for the Emergency Services Unit at the Seattle Center. As I got closer, I could tell there was blood on his hands. I could see a knife in his hand. I saw another gentleman who was walking backwards with a gun in his hand.
Watch your beat zone and watch your cone of fire. Aim for the aortic arch right here. Aim right here and kill. Get on the ground, put down the knife. Watch your beat zone. I don't care, guys. That's perfect, brother. Put the knife down. Aim higher than that. God loves you, man.
The guy who had drawn a concealed carry on me, at least I assume it was concealed carry, the guy who had drawn it was just refusing to shoot me. I was like, "Hey, go ahead, I don't care, guy." I was giving him advice. Telling him to shoot an aortic. I was trying to lower here so he'd aim higher.
So there was a gentleman I did not know at the time, but now his name is Alan. I haven't seen him lately, but he responded, and I witnessed Alan spray pepper spray.
Take it. Get the knife. Grab the knife.
Hey man, you gotta get home now. Sir. What? I don't care. Got a knife, don't go down.
know my faith has been rather weak, God. It really has. And in the end, we're all so selfish, except Jesus, except you. I'm not trying to just save myself. Well, maybe I am partially. I do want to go to heaven too. I do want to be forgiven.
Could you give your full name and spell your last name just to make a record?
David Lee Morris.
When he woke up in his car that morning, David Morris did not have much. Days earlier, he drove from his home in Texas to Washington State, parked at a rest stop in Everett, a city about 30 miles north of Seattle, and utilized public facilities to get things done, such as the Everett Public Library to apply for jobs, a nearby laundromat to wash his clothes, and a local gym to put himself together. That afternoon, he went to the Anytime Fitness to work out, shower, and shave. He got some food and caffeine and answered some important emails. He was scheduled to work his first shift at the Jack in the Box restaurant at 10 p.m., which he planned on leaving if he secured a gas station job for which he had an interview the next day, November 3rd, 2018. The ultimate goal for the 29-year-old was to rent an apartment to be closer to Gabrielle Garcia and their child. Before then, he and his ex-fiancé had agreed to meet up at the Seattle Center, where the iconic Space Needle stands. He drives there that afternoon, picks up his parking ticket, and takes a photo of it for Gabrielle. Then, as he waits for them to arrive, he sits at a bench reading A Farewell to Arms by Ernest Hemingway and plays the mobile game app Boom Beach on his phone. He said things started off well when they arrived.
She and showed up that day. They played with the bubbles or something. She teased him a little by popping the bubbles. You know, maybe he was laughing. And we took some more pictures near the rocket thingy or whatever that is.
But David will tell you, as he told the jury, that he wasn't in the right frame of mind on this day.
I didn't really want to go that day because I was tired and I was preferring something quieter like the apartment. And I never really liked the crowds or anything. That's why I avoided most of it. There's too many people. There's noise. There's lights. There's everything. And I was running around and I was worried, and it's not good.
He conveyed on the stand that much of his experience can be explained by a troubled past. Born in Virginia Beach, Virginia in April 1989, he was adopted by his mom's stepsister in the early 1990s because he claimed his biological mom, who he resented for allegedly cheating on his dad, was unable to care for him. He was raised in Hertford, North Carolina, but moved to Bastrop, Texas for the last part of elementary and all of middle and high school. The man with ADHD and autism said he didn't grow up with his half-siblings, struggled to make friends, was unable to figure out how to bond with other males, and was bullied. He said he didn't like football and, instead of socializing, immersed himself in the world of video games. In 2007, the year he graduated high school, he moved to Elizabeth City, North Carolina, and took up odd jobs while going to college using his ill father's military benefits, referred to as the GI Bill. After his father succumbed to cancer in 2010, he moved to Kyle, Texas to live with his mom, taking up more odd jobs as he contemplated going back to college. It was there and then when the idea of joining the military came to mind. The military ran in his lineage, he thought, and it was an opportunity to build a career, find something he could be good at, and then come back, finish his degrees, and start a family.
That's the gist of it, I guess. To try to actually establish a life instead of, the mediocrity, what everything was before it.
He enlisted in March 2011 on a 5-year contract and was assigned to Fort Lewis, near Tacoma, Washington, in December of that year. While on reserve, he hopped on eHarmony, an internet dating website, and found Gabrielle Garcia in April 2012.
First date went really good. We aquarium, zoo. She kissed me, and then set plans for the next date. The next date is when we got very close. Not just obviously sex, but more than that, the intimacy of it, watching Animal Planet, things of that nature, And then by the third date, that must have been obviously when she became pregnant, and it was officially confirmed by late June, roughly, when I was almost done with NTC, the National Training Center. It's pretty awesome, but it's shocking, but it's responsibility. It's nothing you can ever be entirely prepared for, but it's a wonderful feeling at the same time. And she was very happy about it too.
By the middle of July that year, they were engaged. 4 months later, in early November and while she was still pregnant, he was deployed to Afghanistan as an infantryman to Regional Command South. He said he did urban patrols and escort missions, including moving personnel from the heart of the capital city, Kabul, which was subject to enemy bombings. One such significant explosion ripped through a high-risk traffic circle known as Massoud Square in January 2013.
Some of them, shrapnel lacerations, parts of eyes or fingers missing, or an arm, or people missing limbs or missing something.
David said his unit was afterward tasked with going to the location to fix signal jammer systems called Duke, which prevented phones from triggering remote explosives. He claimed he was in the lead vehicle going through the roundabout when a suspicious woman wearing a burqa and loose clothes approached.
She starts steadily walking, looking around and fidgeting with her cell phone and grabbing stuff, and I'm wondering if she's either pregnant or if it's a vest, and by the time I realize it's a vest, she's within maybe 15 feet of the damn door, and I'm deciding whether to open the door and shoot her or not, and I'm like, if I open the door and shoot her, will it explode or not? Should I like brace for the impact, and I'm tapping Luca's arm here, but he's too busy driving or talking or whatever the hell he was doing, looking left. The black cell phone, it's like she was trying to get the damn thing to work or something, and that's why I think the Duke canceled it out. And I was hoping she was just trying to make a call or something, but she kept trying to, grabbing her vest and fucking with the thing, and she ran up right on the vehicle, and you could just see the eyes and everything, and then she panicked and ran away, went behind the vehicle and just ran the hell out of there.
David and his crew are saved by the Duke system. Later that night, they get a report that the same woman had accomplished her mission elsewhere. He said the experience left him shaken with persistent nightmares and PTSD-triggered flashbacks that he described as like getting drunk on your adrenaline and dream logic, where things in the moment feel real despite being completely irrational outside of it. He said his first flashback occurred 2 weeks after his experience with the Afghan woman, when he nearly shot an interpreter for playfully throwing a snowball at him. 5 months later, and following the birth of his son, he returned to Fort Lewis.
It was still fairly well. I had trouble being near her and all that, and just it was kind of a hard to adjust thing being there. I don't know. Everything is damaged and different. You realize just how much danger is actually in the world. I worried if she really loved me or if I was really loving her. It was like we were both kind of forcing the relationship because we kept delaying the wedding date and all that. We were unofficially basically broken up. Even just a few weeks afterwards, just kept seeing each other. We'd do the usual of the parents would watch the baby and we'd maybe see a movie or still obviously have sex, things like that, watch a little TV, but it was distance. And this was like over 8 months of being apart to a woman you'd only dated a few months, and then you're coming back and there's the baby and there's anxiety and she's there.
Once an aspiring sergeant, David said he started to resent what he called a corrupt institution that didn't let him take parental leave because he wasn't married, and started growing anxious about his own son not knowing or recognizing him as he grew up. Worse still was that he had a couple of years left on his contract, and before he knew it, in March 2014, he was shipped off for a non-combat stint in Germany, which he called a meaner, more dystopian version of Seattle. He said the nightmares from his experience in Afghanistan continued, and he started carrying knives on him, numbed his pain with prostitutes, and contemplated ending it all. He said he suffered quietly because he had heard of other army guys losing their guns and visits with their children in exchange for being treated for PTSD. He said his suffering reached an apex when he tried and failed to overdose on sleeping pills. He was hospitalized overnight, and the military took away his weapon and put him on self-harm watch. He does a couple of counseling sessions with a chaplain, gets demoted, does 2 weeks of extra duty, does what he can to appear incapable of doing the job, and is handed a Chapter 13 separation, which means an honorable discharge for unsatisfactory performance. For David, June 11th, 2015 was a good day because he didn't need a casket to return home. He stayed with his mom in Kyle, Texas, where he filed for unemployment insurance, got a job later that summer at Lowe's, enrolled in Austin Community College to get his associate's degree, and got back with Gabrielle, who moved into a Texas apartment with him in March 2016. Despite things going well initially and having their son settled in preschool, the relationship would not last. In August of that year, after leaving his job at Lowe's, the tension boiled over when he claimed the two got into a fight over communications she received from another man. By that point, though, they had already been sleeping in separate rooms, so it was more of a push than a shove. 5 months after rekindling their relationship, Gabrielle was taking their child back home. This was bad news for David in more ways than one. He had been reliant on Gabrielle's parents, who furnished the home and paid at least part of the rent. He said this event happened 2 months before the lease was up, so it ended up destroying his credit. The bad credit in combination with his Chapter 13 separation meant he could not become a corrections officer, he said. Though they would meet up several times after this, any prospect of them getting back together was almost non-existent. They agreed to a parenting plan, court approved on September 14, 2018, that stipulated David would get 2 daytime visits per month with his son in Washington state, the very last one coming on November 2nd, 2018. For that, he drove up from Texas to Washington as he worked to get himself set up for future visitations and maybe, just maybe, find his way back into Gabrielle's life. And he hoped, as they were making their way through the Seattle Center, that they could mend the broken bridge. But there was another battle he was fighting that day, he claimed.
Eventually, we had wandered through this big crowd and all these chairs and everything else, and we sat that table there that they saw, and she went to go get him some food. I sat doorway here. I was on the outer part, and he was on the inside. Like if it was a vehicle, I'd be in the passenger, he'd be in the driver. It's like that. To my far right, and my back right was the Mott's Pizza, and there's a whole bunch of chairs and people to the front. There's a line of tables and the soda fountain to my back. Some type of crazy stuff on the wall, and I remember him looking at, was it some basketball or a kid on the wall or something?
How noisy was it?
He had been crying and he was starting to get angry. I tried hugging him and he pushed me away. He's like me, he didn't like to be hugged too much at that age. And he started calming down a little bit, but he still was crying a little. He was eating his food really quickly. He wanted the no-name cake, and he just ate that cheese pizza. And I was just paranoid. I didn't want to be near that noise. I was worried something crazy might happen. But I didn't know that would happen. She had stood up. She was doing something with her phone and grabbing things. She had this big, like, the camo jacket and something on the head and a lot of baggy clothing, and she wasn't smiling anymore. There was something she was, I don't know.
And so what was going on in your mind?
I just felt like I was around the cobbled people in the big Masood circle again. And he was there, and it was just like the vehicle again. It was, instead of Luca, it was my son. It's like this dream logic, you know, and just I don't know. You're drunk on your adrenaline is the only way I can describe it. I don't know. You're sweating. You know, it's why I had my jacket off, for God's sakes.
So what did you do?
She had the baggy clothing and the phone fidgeting thing, and she had scratched herself a little, so there were some little from the scabs. I started panicking. I think I was mumbling to myself or something. I'm not certain. And that's when the thing happened. She stood up and was starting to move a little bit, and I freaked out. I got up and flicked the knife really quickly, and then she took one step. I don't know which leg. I don't know. She took some step, and then I started moving at her, and she screamed, obviously, and then this hook stabbing thing happened.
He said the crowds, the noises, the burning smell from the Mod Pizza, and the brown-skinned woman with baggy clothes in front of him transported him back to Afghanistan. He claimed he was now defending himself and the rest of the patrons of the armory against a deadly threat.
David, why did Gabby die?
I had the flashback and I was going to die, and so I attacked the target. I defended myself, but it's obviously a fucking mistake, and she's gone. But I was going to die, and now I'm this, so I'm still dead anyway, you know. And then I didn't get treatment sooner. So that's the bottom line. It's pride, you know. If I had done something sooner, this wouldn't have happened. But I kept thinking I could deal with it. I didn't even admit I had autism. I just said I had trace amounts of it. I had one flashback, and now she's obviously dead, and my son's got PTSD and horrified and hates me, and now I'm here.
Why didn't you call 911?
I started piecing it together right before the guy with the gun, you know, that it was somehow Gabby, which didn't make any damn sense.
David can be seen dialing 911 after exiting the armory, but when the operator picked up the call, there were no words, just ambience.
You piece it together more and more as I kept walking, and then someone hit me with some type of spray or some shit, and it's fully over after they like double tased me or something, and some lights or something at the end on this green field thing, and so I'd say 100% it's gone by then.
Are you Gabrielle Garcia? Yeah. Hi, I'm Officer Medley, Seattle Police, and just so you know, my camera's recording.
By the time of this interaction, Gabrielle Garcia was just finding her way in life. The 28-year-old, who was born in Kansas City, Missouri in April 1990, was adopted by her parents and grew up in Madrona, a neighborhood in Seattle, and went to McGillivray Elementary and Summit High School. She stayed with her mother in Madrona after her parents divorced when she was 14. She did about a year at Seattle Central College, but struggled, her father said. She picked up a job at a grocery store and worked there for a while as she focused on adjusting her path in life. In 2009, she had an abortion, and in 2011, she got a restraining order against a man for domestic violence, according to an email she sent to her lawyer. When her son was born in February 2013, which was during David's deployment, she stopped working and stayed with her mom to raise the child. Her father recalled the kind of person she was.
Gabrielle was just a wonderful kid, and we did a lot of stuff together. I even tried to teach her golf, and that worked until she discovered girlfriends or playmates, and then she didn't want to play golf anymore. But she grew into a very gentle person who loved animals. She and her son spent hours and hours at the Woodland Park Zoo, and she read a lot of romance novels, and she became the most conscientious mother that I knew.
The devoted and protective mother, who had an interest in country music, was now focused on giving her son the best life she could. She got her driver's license later in life and was advancing toward a career in nursing, having just received her nursing assistant certificate from Renton Technical College when she was killed.
Sorry, it took me a couple minutes. I just got the call and took a minute to read through the order. So it looks like he's not supposed to be texting you at all unless it's about the kid, right? Yeah.
Officer Ruth Medley had just learned that the young mom was merely 2 days removed from getting a final anti-harassment order against David from the King County Superior Court. She had filed it less than a month after the parenting plan was put in place. After Gabrielle left Texas with her son because of fear of abuse in the summer of 2016, she effectively cut off most communications with David and forced him to go through her dad, who was a proponent of having him as a father figure in her son's life. David, however, started to really spiral in October 2017 when he discovered Gabrielle had moved on to another man, which he said induced enough stress and worry that he dropped out of classes and contemplated ending it. He claimed when he visited in February 2018, his son recognized the pizza guy, not him, as his dad. That year, he would send non-stop texts and emails to her, who was saved in his phone as both evil ex-fiancé Gabrielle and super love Gabby. In a string of messages in August 2018, he expressed concern about the other men she had been introducing into her life. He had been haggling with her over the stipulations in the parenting plan, including on the length of the buffer period wherein she was not allowed to introduce a new man into their child's life. 3 months, and don't tell me about the guy except his age and occupation. Basic impression, David texted Gabrielle, who initially told him 2 months before appearing to agree to extend the period to 6 months. She also agreed to tell him what he wanted to know about the other guy, but nothing about her sex life. In September 2018, he threatened to hire a private investigator to ensure she didn't break that rule, to which she counter-threatened to file for an anti-harassment order if he did. He vacillated between frustration and pleading with her to listen to him, including about what happened at the apartment in Texas, which he blamed on stress, isolation, and money issues.
We had been strapped for money for those months, and a whole bunch of things happened, illegal stealing stuff, and I was getting punished at Lowe's, and I was trying to get classes on Friday possibly, so I had to quit at Lowe's earlier than I wanted to, and we didn't have the GI Bill because during the summer she didn't have a job or driver's license either, and she was still really young, and her mother didn't want her to use her investment money to pay for rent and they started cutting her off more and more, and so it got really tight on money.
He hoped she would consider dating him again, despite having moved on to other women himself.
I mean, I slayed left and right after me and her broke up and all kinds of shit, but...
Gabrielle was tired of him blowing up her phone. She threatened to block his number and codify a ban on him messaging her in the parenting plan. But he did not heed her warning. While clinging on to hope she would continue dating him if he moved to Seattle, the self-described straight-ticket Republican took swipes at her sex life and criticized her for having that abortion. She responded by keeping her promise. She filed for and received a temporary anti-harassment order in early October on an ex parte basis, meaning it was done without notice to David, who only found out when he tried reaching Gabrielle and got her lawyer instead. The order was then finalized after a hearing on October 30th. A couple of days before the incident. David, who already had plans to move to Seattle long-term, left his Texas home on the 27th of October and arrived in Washington State on the 29th for the hearing. Before the proceeding, he tried negotiating with Gabrielle's lawyer about what the final order could look like. He admitted that the order was probably justified considering the evidence, but challenged some of the guardrails proposed by the other side. The final order barred David from calling Gabrielle, from sending her harassing and threatening texts and emails, from texting or emailing her more than once within a 48-hour period, from surveilling her, and from being at her home or workplace. It also stipulated that he must follow the parenting plan, which gave him those 2 visits a month. David had requested his days for October and November run 4 consecutive days, from October 30th through to the 2nd of November. The day after the hearing, Gabrielle and David met up for the second of the 4 visits, which was also Parent-Teacher Day at their son's school, Stevens Elementary, before going trick-or-treating and having dinner with their father.
The order was put in place on Tuesday.
30th, correct?
Yes. And he seemed to be respecting the order on Tuesday. I mean, he made 1 or 2 small comments.
Okay.
And then yesterday, after we had a meeting with our son's teachers, he,
is that a good address for you?
Yeah. He was pressuring me to consider dating him again, even though the order clearly states he needs to respect my personal life. And so it wasn't just that he'd asked once, he was going at it for about 5 or 10 minutes. We were walking to my car and it was, and
afterwards?
Yeah, and he was saying, when that whenever I'm ready to start dating, would I please consider dating him? And I made it clear, I will probably never ever date you again. And he said, I know, but I just want you to consider. And he did not want to let up unless I agreed, and I never did agree to it. But he just, what bothers me the fact that he was that this insistent behavior when it comes to my dating life, which was what got the anti-harassment order to begin with. It starts up again the day after the order's put in place. And then while we were trick-or-treating with our son in Madison Park, and then afterwards at the Madrona Arms over in the Madrona neighborhood, he's making comments about how beautiful I am and how I'm still sexy. And at one point he's commenting on my breasts.
Gabrielle woke up this morning and realized the anti-harassment order only restrained David from making comments about her dating and sex life over email and text, not in person, and she acknowledged that the order conflicts with the parenting plan with respect to proximity and boundaries. She called her lawyer, who told her to get the police involved. She drove to this station and is now in front of Officer Medley.
Has he made any threats against your safety or your family's safety?
He had sent an email about a month ago, or earlier this month, that if he saw me being robbed and raped, he would do absolutely nothing to help me.
That would be putting it charitably. The email, dated September 24th, 2018, was just one in several communications to Gabrielle over the past couple of months related to her sex and dating life, in which he accused her of cheating on him and threatened to tell their child about her activities. She said the communications, which informed the court's decision to put in place the anti-harassment order, have caused me substantial emotional distress. Here's the author's enthusiastic reading of the especially offending email.
You want me out of your life after stealing my son, letting your anxiety cheat him of my influence, your damn cowardice that killed Kayla. You are a control freak over him, Gabrielle. I do not have Skype or FaceTime and don't trust those services. The fact that you are such a lazy, soulless bitch that you can't either unblock me or make a secondary Facebook to use for him is beyond me. Finally, after 2 years, I can say I don't love you anymore and never will again. Where are you? Oh, this one. No wonder she's reading this. Was I drunk? Was it? What time is this?
Mr. Morris, go ahead and keep reading, please.
Yes, depeel the pathos. Were you being raped in the street by robbers? I'd let them kill you. I'd let them piss on you as it helps freeze you to death in the snow-filled hell of a WA winter. I'd let them gouge your eyes or stab your spine, mutilate your clit, and shit on you as they mercilessly leave you to live in agony. I will never help you again. I will not do anything illegal to you. But nor will I help you. If only Doug had just found you during his S&M play, your sweaty self did with him.
So bad was Gabrielle's experience with David. She wrote on Facebook a month before the incident that she hadn't been this depressed in over 2.5 years.
The horrifying thing is that all this paper is a total 180 from before he was deployed to Afghanistan in 2012.
Okay, so he is a veteran.
Yeah, and he was deployed. He was never diagnosed with PTSD, but this is a total 180 from how he used to be.
Officer Medley will determine that a violation of the order had taken place and will write out a domestic violence report later that morning. She instructs Gabrielle to notify her lawyer with a case number she'll give her.
Are there any further plans to meet with him?
He did have plans to meet at the Pacific Science Center today and tomorrow for the visitation. That's the only place that I know he's going to be for the next 2 days.
Kenna Duckworth was the one to break the news that morning. The associate attorney, fresh from law school that year, was subjected to a bit of a trial by fire when she was thrown into a volatile matter. Her law firm's client, Gabrielle Garcia, was seeking an anti-harassment order against David Morris. Kenna helped draft the material and then gave her first oral argument on October 30th to secure the final judgment. So when her firm was notified that David had allegedly violated it, it was Kenna who was emailing him about it on the morning of the incident. Miss Garcia prompted said discussions and played with me in a sexual manner, teasing and doing play hits to my groin and footsies he claimed in an emailed response to the violation notification, denying there was any discussion of her dating life during their get-together on Halloween. He claimed that she was likely saying that because she had allegedly violated family law by taking their son on a trip to Oregon in 2017 without notice to him, suggesting she knew he had leverage on her. David had previously said he was worried that, because the agreement to meet her on Halloween was verbal and not written, he was being lured into a deliberate trap, which would allow Gabrielle to send him to jail, cut him off from his son, and uproot to Topeka, Kansas, as he alleged was her plan all along. He sends a couple more emails to Kenna, one at 2:12 p.m. in which he declares he wants make-up time with his son because he claims his visits were cut short, and that he'll talk to Gabrielle about it at the Seattle Center. He also takes a shot at Kenna directly, calling her an unnecessary lackey who is as worthless as most liberal law workers of Seattle and clearly two-faced. 2 minutes later at 2:14 p.m., a little more than an hour before his get-together with Gabrielle, he tells Kenna that he will never place her under surveillance, ever. Here's an unflinching David with a crude telling of the rest of the story.
So the plan was to meet at Pacific Center at 3:30. He gets out of school at 3. And I got there early, 2:40. She was supposed to pay for parking because otherwise I wouldn't be able to afford it. Yeah, not really. We've been getting along pretty well. She was kind of getting in a sour mood yesterday. Me and her dad are polar opposites politically, Aside from I kind of agree with a minimum wage being raised a little bit. There's certain things I'm mostly a classic straight ticket Republican. I mean, I early voted 22nd October, and her dad's very, very liberal. We were kind of angry at each other. I needed to talk to her. I was gonna try to have a civil talk with her, and be like, look, I get what you're trying to do. I've got mixed signals, but if there's any potential, we can get back together. She was really supposed to be single for the past few months, and it was really hard for her to date anyway. And I was saying maybe in a few months, if I've proven myself, we could finally get together, because she needed help with it. She really did. She was extremely controlling at the apartment. His breakfast, his lunch, his dinner, everything usually she got control of.
So did you feel tension when you first saw her today?
Yeah, there was some tension. I needed to talk to her. She was trying to run away from it with her anxiety, to try to avoid it. What really should have happened is she probably should have just had her dad come with her and then have a talk with me while he watched in the car, and then that's what should have honestly happened. That would have been more intelligent of her, but we're talking, we're kind of not getting along. She's kind of avoiding talking to it, going upstairs and all that. And I was getting really concerned that she had only invited me to meet up with near her parents, not as convenience, but to try to say I was violating the harassment order or something. I felt like I was being set up. And, because she knew I had a strong case of her repeatedly breaking family law even before the parenting plan was set up. You can move a child within the same district without the other parent's approval, but you have to inform them, and she hadn't done that. Met up with her, got the sticker, we were kind of angry at each other. She did something rather insulting. She had promised to get him the day before yesterday a brontosaurus. It's not really a brontosaurus, it's like an allosaurus, whatever the hell. There is no brontosaurus technically. But anyway, we were at the gift shop getting him a gift, right? And he got it and all that, and I helped to pick him out, brought him over there. And she took it and she was paying for it. And what she said is, oh, David, do you want to pay for this? And I'm sitting there thinking, well, first of all, you haven't paid me for the parking. Second of all, you know how limited my money is until I start getting more money from this new job and what I just sacrificed moving up. And so it was just extremely insulting. Like she was trying to embarrass or guilt trip me or something to pay more money. It's not like I'm a deadbeat on child support. She just stopped accepting child support for basically since February 2018. She just... And when she doesn't even need my money, there's no leverage in child support, and I had even less power.
It's a long way of saying Gabrielle paid for the toy.
We went up to the top, and I was trying to get her to say, hey, we needed to talk, and I was kind of working myself up, getting more angry and angry at her, not avoiding, and all the excuses she's always given. And I had briefly, when we were on the top floor area, I briefly thought about just taking her out right there, taking it and knifing her, but I wanted to give it a little more time to have a more civil talk. But then I started getting angry, remember all the horrible things she had done and how much I've been cut out of my life and how the entrapment, she seemed like she was setting me up by having me go meet him near her parents' house when I'm not supposed to be at her parents', and nothing in writing saying I was allowed there, so maybe she'd accuse me of surveillance or some shit.
So you said you thought about killing her?
Yeah, I had taken out, they'll probably see it on the camera records, I had taken out the knife, but then I changed my mind. I didn't want to do it.
You had taken out the knife?
Yeah, I had been debating it for a bit. I didn't. It's kind of a debate as to does the end justify the means? Is it worth killing her? Is it worth stopping her from all these crazy men she brings into his life and how horrible anxiety is, and setting up her brother to raise? Would that be worth it? Because she is a good mom usually. She does love him, and it does deprive him of his mom. But is it worth it to get him to be raised by his uncle or in a different family and something different?
So did you open the knife when you first?
No, not there. I was thinking about it, but I decided against it. I had been, even every time I was debating it, but I was getting angry and thinking about all the reasons I had to kill her, versus that. But I would have much preferred to have, if I'd had the money, I would have had my gun and just shot her.
When he was living in Texas, he told my dad that he had bought a gun, and then he told me yesterday that he had pawned it but wasn't able to get it back out of the shop. I don't know how accurate that is because I've never seen the gun to begin with.
I would have knocked out and shot her. That would have been far better, particularly not in such an area.
Why?
for one, for my son having to witness that, maybe he'll repress it, maybe he won't remember it, or maybe he'll eventually get over with therapy. It's hard. People respond to trauma differently. So anyway, I think we ended up somehow at the food court at the pizza place. He likes his cheese pizzas, or at least he did. I was trying to have a conversation with him, but I was also steadily, the things I was saying, the things that I had accused her and said to her about her in emails, starting to come out, and I knew once I'd already said that it was too late. You crossed the Rubicon, I was starting to get angry, like, oh, hey, just being a coward due to anxiety, called her a whore, things like that. It makes sense she would start to get angry at that point, wanting to avoid me. But she was dodging a conversation. I was trying to have a polite, civil conversation where she kept avoiding it and avoiding it. I knew she would eventually try to get away instead of just talking to me, and when she would go to that, she was going to go to the restroom, and I knew probably, she'd just go to the restroom, call a lawyer, all that crap, and try to accuse me of violating her surveillance or any of that, It's been brewing for over 2 years. But I haven't really wanted to kill her until, I guess the first time I ever seriously thought about it was around April or May, because I have a lot of guilt. Even before this, not making enough money and failing my son, I thought about suicide. And the only reason I didn't is because I thought I could be useful to my son and that it would hurt him more if I died. Today, once I got that from the assistant lawyer, it was, I was like, well, I'm apparently going to get cut out and never see my son again, maybe go to jail or whatever, and I'm losing it, and I'm like, fuck it.
So she stands up, you think she's going to go to the bathroom, what do you do?
Yeah, I was like, okay, that's it, she's just going to go tell some other people. I'm getting cut out of my son's life. And I'm like, all right, fuck it, I'm taking her out for this. I'm not going to let her get away with anything else,
How did you do it?
I kind of confronted her, so I pulled it, and a little slow, but I flipped it, and when she saw it, she screamed. I'm not certain if I actually would have stabbed her if she hadn't screamed, I'm not entirely certain, because I think part of me still didn't want to do something that evil, though there is some justification. Once she did that, I just said, fuck it, I stabbed into the neck. I don't know, I think I hit right in here or right in here. I think I missed the jugular, sadly. That's better to go with a slash. So I stabbed, and as horrible as it is, I could feel hitting the spine too a little bit, and I kind of tried to stab again. But I wasn't doing that to be cruel. I wasn't trying to just stab her to cause her pain. I was trying to stab her.
Onto her head or something?
No. I had her kind of like this. I didn't have a good grip on her or anything. It was too spur of the moment.
What was keeping her from just running back?
She kind of, her wall was here, and the chair was here. She was kind of trapped. And then when she screamed, it was...
Was she standing at the time?
Yeah. And plus with the coat on, it was kind of hard to see exactly where it's hitting on the neck too. You know how it is, no plan is perfect anyway, and it was more spur of the moment. I was trying to make it quick, that's why I went for the neck. I wasn't trying to be cruel, and I was trying to end it, because after she stabbed, she's in pain, she's bleeding, I was just like, keep stabbing, because, it's like if you shoot a deer, you don't want to just let the deer sit there and bleed to death. You might as well make it quick, so more pain now, less later.
Gabrielle had been stabbed 6 times and had defensive wounds on her hands. She was rushed for emergency surgery, where doctors performed operations to repair blood vessels, but it wasn't enough. She died in the operating room. David had no idea of her status during the interrogation, if you can even call it that.
I kind of want her to live, and I kind of don't. And it might be worse if she does live, what she's paralyzed for the rest of her life or some shit. That might keep her from being promiscuous if she was feeling down. That might make her more careful about the type of men she's been with, some of the horrible shit she's done. Clearly, I'm apparently one of the crazy ones now. On the one hand, there is a lot of justification. She had aborted her first kid. She had cut me out of his life. She had neglected him at times, hit him on the arm too hard at times. There's bad things she had done. And there's a really good argument that it might be better he's raised by his uncle, was more educated, wealthy and intelligent, squared away. I'd like to at least believe I did it for my son. So, because there was a lot of good, and there was a lot of good she made in her life and the happiness she brought. But a woman with horrible anxiety who's very spoiled, and who when her parents die, she'll probably be kind of lost and she'll be easily manipulated by the men she's dated. I've seen it, and I know her past. And all these crazy promiscuity and these crazy men she's been rushing into relationship after relationship and bringing them into my son's life, and the lack of vetting on her part, it just scared me. And for months and months being cut out of his life and not knowing what's going on with him, and just, I realized I was like, enough is enough, So, as weird as it sounds, I did love her, despite everything. But
she's your son.
I used to think I loved her more than my son, but I think in the long run I love my son more than her. After that, yeah, I eventually started walking out to the road. Police were here. I'm like, all right, well, fuck it. Probably wouldn't be able to kill myself too well with this knife. You know, I don't know if it's partially cowardice and not wanting to kill myself, or part of what's going through my mind is also, like, on the one hand, I want to die and I do want to pay for what I've done, not being good for my son and all this evil shit. But at the same time, I'm like, do I have the right to die, or should I rot in jail and face punishment for this, rot in prison?
Mr. Morris, you're claiming, essentially, that everything about what you did to Gabrielle Maria Garcia when you stabbed her in the neck 6 times to numerous officers on November 2nd of 2018 were lies.
Yes. I lied to all the police officers and the rather incompetent fire medics.
But why?
He made up everything he told the police in order to save his son from knowing about his PTSD. That what really happened was a delusion, where he was a hero, rescuing everyone around him by killing Gabrielle, who he believed was a suicide bomber.
And that's the reason he said he did not tell police that he suffered a PTSD-induced flashback during the attack, as he would later claim to the jury. David, who was defending himself against a charge of premeditated murder, came from a military class with a warrior mentality that viewed mental health struggles as weakness, according to the defense. And save for the couple of counseling sessions with a chaplain, his PTSD largely went untreated. His struggles, they said, made it difficult for him to handle the stressors in his life and keep what was precious to him, unable to keep a job or Gabrielle, a relationship with which he believed he needed to be in to maintain proximity to his son. These stressors drew the worst out of David, as evidenced by the texts and emails, but that doesn't mean this was a premeditated crime, the defense continued, arguing that people in his position say extreme things all the time. In fact, there is concrete evidence that he wasn't planning on murdering her that day, the defense argued. He was scheduled to work later that night, had a job interview lined up for the next day, and proposed future visitation days with his son. He was cordial at the anti-harassment hearing, admitting that the order was probably justified, and that Gabrielle, by virtue of the fact she was okay with being around him after the hearing, didn't feel threatened by his presence. The reality, the defense went, was incredible to most people. David, surrounded by crowds, hearing the bustling Seattle Center noise, smelling the burning from the pizza oven, and seeing a brown-skinned woman with baggy clothes fidgeting in front of him, suffered a flashback episode that placed him back at Massoud Square defending himself and the patrons of the armory against Gabrielle, the Afghan bomber in his skewed mind. When he gets outside, he's still only tangentially connected to reality when he instructs the man with the gun, who he sees as a machine gunner, to shoot him center mass because he broke the rules of engagement. It takes volts of electricity from a taser to snap him out of the flashback. His clean story to detectives functioned as a way for him to avoid the stigma of PTSD, while getting him to prison as fast as possible so he could just die, according to him. That's the defense. The state's argument was slightly more conventional, and it went something like this. He premeditated the killing of Gabrielle Garcia because he said so. He said he had been getting increasingly more upset every time Gabrielle refused to reconcile with or even talk to him. He said he had thought about killing her that spring, thought about killing her moments before he actually did, and made a number of other remarks, including that there was overwhelming evidence against him.
As you can see, grand jury, well, yeah, no shit, I'm guilty. I mean, how the hell am I not guilty? The evidence is so fucking overwhelming, it's ridiculous.
That what he did was evil.
I don't know exactly how I said. Whatever fucking evil people say who stab, good women.
That he forgot to twist the knife after stabbing her, and sarcastically conveyed the deep trouble he was in on multiple occasions.
Just straight up killed a woman, so I don't really have a right to complain.
On top of not telling police about the flashback after the fact, he didn't tell anyone in the armory that there was a bomb in the moment, which he explained away by saying he went blank. He said he was going to call 911 for his son, but stopped when he realized other people were probably doing the same. No doubt this was an unconventional self-defense case, but prosecutors argued it was unworkable anyway. First, the evidence showed David started the altercation with Gabrielle, which by itself defeats the case. But second, the jury would have to wrestle with what the prosecution called the impossible concession. Grant David's defense and watch other people mask premeditated killings under the guise that they were experiencing a flashback. In May 2021, David Morris was found guilty of first-degree murder with 3 enhancements. It was committed with a deadly weapon. It was a domestic violence offense, which requires that the crime be done against a family member or intimate partner and in front of a mutual child under 18, and he knew by doing it in public, inside a center with an active high school on a Friday afternoon, he was creating a destructive impact on the community.
Well, for one, for my son having to witness that.
The state requested 45 years, while the defense asked for mental health to be considered as a mitigator, which was turned down by the court because whatever struggles he claimed to have did not stop him from formulating a plan to kill her. David received 38 years in prison with a no-contact order for Gabrielle's parents and his son. Following the jury verdict and before sentencing, David signed an open adoption agreement that saw Gabrielle's mom take custody of his son. David was unable to compose himself under cross-examination, which appeared to be a strategy of the prosecution to prove their point that he was not just easy to anger, but that he was especially so with women. The cross-examiner, who was a woman, raised a political position he held that females should not be in combat arms. He claimed the reason for that position, beside using it to help him get discharged, was because a female's scream is distinctly more horrifying than a man's, and that it had triggered his father's PTSD. Whether that answer was an attempt to suggest Gabrielle's scream induced an episode is open for interpretation. In any event, the real meat was the concrete evidence, the texts, emails, and his interrogation, which wasn't much of one at all. Placated with snacks and bathroom breaks, and with the detective occasionally breaking up his tangents to guide him back towards self-incrimination, David Morris, as if verbalizing a Dear Diary entry, laid out months of anger in front of investigators. He knew he was in trouble and was already thinking about his stay in prison. Besides the stress of having to come up with a strategy to avoid getting violated,
Try not to get asked. That would be nice.
He asked whether a maximum security facility would allow him access to a library to catch up on some reading.
Do they allow maximum security prisoners to read or anything? I assume they have library privileges? I'm sure no.
Perhaps including Ernest Hemingway's A Farewell to Arms, a classic tale of love and loss. Despite recalling during trial exactly where he left off in the book when Gabrielle and his son arrived at the Seattle Center that day, he did use a bookmark. It was a card from Gabrielle in the early months of their relationship and before he was shipped to Afghanistan. I needed ya, got ya, love ya, the card read. David, I love you with all my heart. Always will, love always. Gabby. Thanks for watching, and a special thanks to the YouTube members whose contributions help pay for the material you see and hear in these videos. I hope you're well, you're engaging in acts of charity, and I'll see you next time. Good night.